Welcome back, everyone. Another exciting episode of the Lifestyle Practice Podcast. I'm excited. We've got Matt back to talk about the experience in the US Open. And I'm really excited for this conversation myself because that whole week, I know you were getting like bombarded with text messages and stuff. And I was like, I'm not going to text. I'm just going to let him just be in the moment, experience the week. So now I'm excited to hear everything. Almost all this I'm going to be hearing for the first time along with everybody else listening.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me back on our show. Yeah, we haven't talked about any of this really, you and I. And you're right. I've had a couple client calls this morning, and the only thing I felt like I stayed in touch with that week outside of the US Open was clients and family, obviously. But it was nuts. It was absolutely nuts. It still feels like a blur, but I wish I'd play better too. But man, it came and went in a flash. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think it'll be kind of fun to go chronologically through the experience. Anyone that didn't listen to the last episode of Matt qualifying for the US Open should go back and listen to that because it sets the stage for a lot of what we're talking about and it helps you see how cool this whole experience is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to like big time everybody here. I'm certainly not. But if you've been living under a rock, just Google what's going on or go listen to that episode because it'll be a good contrast listening to our chat before I left for the US Open a few days after qualifying. And then now this is coming out a week or so after getting home. So it'll be a cool little contrast and a good follow up to what happened.
Yeah. So start us off, talk about like first impressions. What was it like being there at Oakmont, the media attention, interviews, seeing your name on practice tee sign, locker room, stuff like that? Kind of talk through some of those experiences the first day or two and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'll talk about this as if everyone who's listening kind of knows a little bit, but also give some more information. So the course at which the US Open was held this year, Oakmont Country Club, was a place where I caddied in high school and college and briefly before dental school because I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I was a former caddy there and then qualified for the US Open at that golf course. So the story just became bigger than I could have ever imagined, honestly. With that return to my hometown, but then the whole dentist side of it, it just kind of blew up. So yeah, I mean, going back, it's funny, like I know exactly where the locker room is, but I'm showing up to play in the US Open, you know? So yeah, I drove in on 5 days before the tournament started and just like showing up. This was before gates were open and there's actually very few players there on the Saturday beforehand. So just showing up, checking in, getting your locker and just seeing the whole grandstands, everything just all set up for a US Open. It was overwhelming and very, very emotional, like not moved to tears necessarily, but just like, wow, I did this. I am here. This is beyond my wildest dreams to qualify for the US Open in the first place, but for it to be back at Oakmont where I just spent a lot of time caddying and walking those fairways and you kind of dream about like what's gone on in those fairways or maybe even doing it yourself. Like it's crazy. So yeah, I mean, it's even for the guys who play on tour every day, the US Open is one of the biggest and best weeks as far as the strength of the tournament goes and all of the amenities and all of what they do to take care of players. Like it's the very best week for them too. So it was just like kid in a candy store kind of vibes,
Yeah. At one point I think it was there's a picture of you on the driving range practicing hitting balls next to Scottie Scheffler. Tell me what that was like.
So two things can be true at one time for the week. One is I won my qualifier and deserved to be there, right? And for at least a day or a week, it was just as good, if not better, than a lot of the pros in the world, I guess. And then the second thing that can be true is you show up and you're just awestruck by all of these guys that you're playing with that you see on TV. And it's funny, though, because a lot of them who are younger than you and I, like Scottie's, I think, 28 or 29. A lot of those guys who are playing really well right now, they're either right around our age or a lot younger, some of them. So yeah, that tweet was like Scottie Scheffler warming up next to the dentist on Wednesday. Yeah. It was awesome. So like I've played enough tournament golf, like nothing can prepare you, let alone someone who does this for a living, for the US Open and everything that comes with it. But I've played enough tournament golf where like generally, you kind of get on the range next to somebody who's really good and you just go about your business and try to block that out a little bit. But yeah, you walk on the range, or at least me this week, I'm walking on the range like, who's here? What are they doing? And yeah, I'm just like, oh, let's set up next to Scottie. And I think Phil Mickelson was on the other side of me in that tweet or at one point. Yeah. And so, yeah, I'm like trying not to just like glance over my shoulder, see what he's doing. My buddies, but like the guys who work with me on swing and short game and stuff, they're my age and they work in golf. They're like not watching me. They're watching Scottie Scheffler hit balls.
Yeah.
It's just another one of those surreal moments of the week, just to be there next to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was interaction like? I know I've seen clips and like you see a lot of the players are pretty friendly to each
Mhm.
other. Curious, like, did you have any conversation like meeting new people or just saying, hey, I'm here maybe this one time to get to meet you? What was that like? Or what did you see firsthand?
Yeah, so a couple conversations like I'll throw out names, but like Sam Burns, who was leading the tournament. We have some mutual friends in golf, so I said hey to him and asked him about taking my buddy's money a few months ago in a game they played, and so we chatted. He was super cool. Bryson, same thing. Bryson DeChambeau. We have a few mutual friends through golf, and I'd actually reached out to one of his friends just try to connect, and we weren't able to play a practice round together. The timing of it didn't work, but Bryson actually came up to me on the range and said hey and congrats, and just we had a great chat. And it's cool because you even in like quick chats like that, you kind of learn how the best in the world do their thing. And it could be something really simple like Bryson, for example, and how he plays his practice rounds. Like he doesn't really schedule his practice rounds in advance, meaning he just kind of shows up at the course that day. He has an idea, but like he's just kind of flying by the seat of his pants. He's really in tune with like how he feels and what he feels like is going to be best for him that day, which I'm like, that's interesting. So had a great chat with him. I played practice rounds. The practice rounds are very informal. You can kind of sign up with a group of guys you want to be with, but for me, I'm like, I'm just going to try to weasel my way into the group with a lot of these, tour pros. So I played with guys like Cameron Young, Wyndham Clark, Adam Shank, Emiliano Grillo, Chris Gotterup, all these guys who are out on tour. Some of them who played really well this week. During those practice rounds, at least especially for the first hole or so, it's like, whoa, this is unbelievable that I'm doing this. And so that's the summary of the whole week is like the entire week felt very uncomfortable. But how could it not, right? I mean, it's just so out of my comfort zone. And even for a lot of those guys, it's uncomfortable. But for a lot of them, this is just a week of their season, right? So it's just, yeah, that was like the theme of the week is feeling pretty uncomfortable. But overall, guys are super cool. Very few, like there were a few who said, yeah, you're the dentist, right? That was the thing that everybody knew me as, right?
Uh-huh.
So a few had known that, and the guys I played with, we got to chatting about that. But generally, everyone was like super cool. I mean, it's just like for a week, I was one of the guys, but didn't really go out of my way to like try to bug anybody, because they're doing their work
Right.
and they're in their process a lot of the time. So
Yeah, it's almost weird where you're like, you're not a spectator, right? Like you're
right,
playing. And so you could just go up to people and talk to them, but you want to be respectful at the same time. So I
sure.
imagine that was an interesting scenario.
There were a couple guys that I just like, you say, hey, nice playing, or you see him in the locker room, you see him on the range, dap him up real fast and say hello. Like, truly, like, I'm there and I played well enough to be there. So you're one of the guys. And there were a few, like, Bryson's a good example. He's very open with the information he gives out. Like, he's basically an influencer now in a lot of ways. But a lot of his content is very helpful if you're trying to get better at golf. So I've learned a lot from him. And I just said, hey, dude, thank you for doing what you do. I've learned a lot. I'm sure he appreciated that because he likes doing it. So there's some conversations like that, but it's really cool when you are, in this instance, it's golf, but it's anything in life. Like when you can be around people who are the best in the world, or you can be in a room with people who are so much better than you at something, or they're doing something the way you want to. You can learn so much so quickly. And that was one of the most jaw dropping things for me. It's like, yeah, I kind of played poorly by my standards. I would say if I played really, really incredibly well, I could have made the cut. Like that was kind of my ceiling for the week, I'd say. Really, really, really well. Obviously didn't come close, but you learn even just by watching some of these guys hit shots. You're like, oh, so like that's how it looks. That's how it sounds. Like, okay, this is how they go about their practice rounds. Maybe that they do something a little different than me. And they all kind of have their own process, but there's like commonalities with what they're doing. So I thought that was really kind of like a big takeaway of the week is like, it's that like kind of age old cliche. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're probably in the wrong room. Well, I was like I was not the smartest person in the room that week. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm really curious to hear just about teeing off, like the very first day. I
Oh,
think even for me to go play a round of golf, I don't like getting paired up with a random twosome. Even that first tee, I'm like, okay, don't shake it. Just hit a decent drive. So I can't even imagine what it would feel like to be in this situation. What was it like?
So for those of you who weren't kind of following along, this was a huge story all week, obviously. And then I was on Golf Channel on Tuesday night, I think it was, or maybe Monday night, and tee times come out on Tuesday morning. And I was actually at my buddy's house where we were staying and we're watching TV, and there it flashes up like tee times are out for the US Open. And like first tee ball is going to be hit by Matt Vogt, the amateur, the dentist, the former caddy. And I'm just like, I knew something like that was coming, but then immediately I'm like, oh my gosh, like that tee time is at 6:45 in the morning. And it's
Yeah.
like, you got to get moving at least 3 hours before your tee time. I was up at 3:15. So I cannot describe the feeling. Nothing in the world can prepare you for the feeling of doing that, hitting that first tee ball, and just knowing the millions of people that are watching, the gazillions of people that'll be watching after the fact. And you can say, okay, nothing matters. People's opinions don't matter. Just do your thing, but they matter. Like if I pop that ball out of bounds on the first swing, I'm always going to be the guy who smoked it out of bounds to open up the US Open. So the first hole is a straightaway par 4, and it's an incredibly difficult hole because every hole is at Oakmont. And to the right is out of bounds and trees, and like literally the entire golf course is to the left. Like you could hit it a mile left. And so I'm stepping onto that tee, and I felt okay warming up. I had a pretty good warm up. I felt okay. Nerves were pretty good. And they announced my name, and I went to go tee up the ball. And I kid you not, Derek, my hand is like, I could barely get the ball on the tee.
Oh my gosh.
And so in the back of my mind, I'm aiming left and a curve back towards the fairway. And in the back of my mind, this little piece of me is like, for the love of God, do not hit this ball right. Like you can hit it as far left as you want. And I did. I hit it way left. It was like a bad tee ball, but it ended up working out. I made a good par and we were off. But I was joking when I got back home, and this last weekend I was playing with a buddy of mine, and he said, "Hey, do you mind if I stand here while you putt?" And I said, "No, man, it's fine." I paused for a second. I said, "Blake, actually, nothing will ever bother me ever again. Nothing will ever compare." And it's true.
Seriously.
True, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. So, okay, talk a little bit about just the rounds themselves. Like, how did you feel? First tee, high nerves, you get a par. I would imagine that's like a big confidence booster. You keep moving on. What are some other things that kind of stand out to you as far as what you experienced, whether it's the holes or something going on another hole, or a shot that you didn't like, or something that went well? Like, what things kind of stand out to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I want to kind of relate this back to life and dentistry in a way, because I don't want to make that too much of a stretch, but there are so many parallels to high performance in anything. So the first round, I shot 82, 81 in those 2 rounds, which is, the course is brutally difficult, but I beat maybe 6 guys in the field or something like that. Once the initial nerves went away, after that first hole, like, okay, we made a par, we're good. Made a really solid par, almost made birdie on the second hole. Hit a really good tee ball on the third hole. So like I had really settled down. And it's nice when you hit a couple good shots in a row, especially in the US Open. You're like, okay, like I've got this a little bit today. This is okay. Versus if you start off, and golf can be hard, and you play a few bad holes, you make a few bad swings, things in your head start to move really fast. You're just like, oh, geez, your head starts to spin. And that third hole, I ended up making a pretty bad bogey. And then it just, as the round went on, that's the thing about a setup like the US Open. It's just so difficult that for me, summary of my week is that my swing just kind of wasn't the best it could have been. Pressure does some really funny things to performance. And I wasn't able to hit the shots I wanted to hit under the gun. And you can't get away with any mistakes in a US Open. Obviously, it's not like you're just playing at your local course where you can hit it anywhere. So again, your head just starts to spin. And then again, it's really easy to say, oh, well, like nobody's opinion matters. What you do doesn't matter. Have fun. Forget about the score. But like, that's really so much easier said than done. So you're thinking, oh gosh, like I'm 6 over par. I just shot 41 on the front 9. I'm playing poorly. Like it starts to compound sometimes, That was tough. I will say the support from Pittsburgh and the city was unbelievable. I had people following me all week. screaming my name, shouting things. And I acknowledged it in the practice rounds. But when it came time to play in the tournament, I understand now what these guys go through every week. You just almost have to stay in your bubble. You have to just stick to your process and try to ignore the noise. And it's funny because when there's so many people out there, like this is the most people I've ever played in front of. When there's so many people out there, it does almost become like white noise. You almost don't notice it as much as if you had just a couple people watching you, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, like the same if you're in a restaurant and there's only one other table, like everything
exactly.
they're saying. If there's
Exactly
five
right.
tables, it's like you don't listen to anything really.
Yeah, exactly right. So for me, it was, the summary of my play for the week is just that, it wasn't quite sharp enough, but then there were definitely times where I made mistakes, mental mistakes, physical mistakes that were trying to make up for previous errors, which is so frustrating. It's like, I already made this mistake, acknowledge it and accept it and don't make it worse. And there's parallels all over the place with life and business when it comes to that. But that's just call it lack of experience, call it pressure. That was kind of difficult to accept because I definitely made some mental errors. But honestly, I played poorly on Thursday. I would have had to almost a miracle round on Friday to even make the cut. I did kind of allow myself to look around a little more, just appreciate the setting. And Friday, I had an afternoon tee time. So people are out there after work and there's a ton of people out there. And there were moments out there I'll just never forget. I mean, it's just like you're playing in the US Open. That's when it kind of started to sink in a little bit. I still kind of ramble on and I search for words because it's just, I'm still kind of processing what happened. Just processing just being there. But yeah, I'm still trying to find the words and still trying to understand like what it all means in my life too,
Yeah, it's interesting because you have experienced something that like literally almost no one experiences in life. I mean, I don't know how you would try and put into numbers, but it's not something that you hear people talk about. And so you have an expectation. It's just a one-off experience that you kind of have no idea what to expect. You go through the experience in a relatively short period of time. It's all a whirlwind. And then you're just kind of left with like, okay, what happened and what does this mean?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think like what I told myself, and I feel really good about this, is I wasn't supposed to play well this week. I tried not to put expectation on myself. I would have loved to have played well. That would have meant a lot to me. But at the end of the day, like I wasn't supposed to play well. The Scottie Schefflers and the Rory McIlroys of the world, like those are the guys with expectations to play well. Could I have played well? Absolutely. But like that wasn't like an expectation. I told myself at the beginning of the week, I was going to do all the media. I was going to handle it all with grace. I was going to try to inspire people to pursue something in their lives, no matter what their age or their circumstance, that they want to do that other people might think is stupid or foolish or a waste of time or a pipe dream. And I've had so many people in the dental community and just in general who saw me on the news reaching out saying, I love how you handled yourself. You handled yourself with grace, no matter what you shot. I was inspired by your story. I'm like, in my mind, that's a success. There's going to be things in my personal life. Like my life is forever changed in a great way. In my personal life, in my career, in coaching, and in TLP, everything has changed in a great way. And everything will get better from this experience. But I just wanted to inspire. I wanted to really show the real me in all of this. And I know I did that. So that's something that I'm really, really proud of. Because honestly, after I shot 82 on the first day, I'm walking off the 18th green and I'm a mix between furious and upset. And they're like, hey, let's go do media. I could have been a real ass, honestly. I wanted to be just in that moment. But it was like, okay, let's take a breath. Let's remember you got to be gracious in defeat in this scenario. And again, I felt like it went pretty well. So, yeah,
I'll say it's something that I was really impressed in. And again, I haven't voiced this to you because I was restricting myself from communication with you during that time frame. But I thought every interview that I watched, I was just like, man, he just is so composed. And even at times when you didn't know like necessarily how to answer, you just acknowledged it. Like there wasn't much of a sense of like deer in the headlights. It was just like, no, I mean, this is what I'm going through. This is what it's like. And so I was, for lack of better words, like I was really proud. It was such a cool moment for me. The question that I had just listening to you, I was thinking, because honestly, I had a thought like, dude, if I was in that seat, I don't know that I'd be able to talk and respond like that. And then I was thinking, do you think that just going through the process of being part of TLP, doing podcasts, writing out all of that, like if that came through and kind of helped you in a clutch moment of being able to have interviews and compose yourself during those moments?
Absolutely. Yes, I thought about that a lot actually. Like doing interviews and podcasts and reacting and working on how body language and how I come across in my practice and how I'm leading my team. Again, I am not perfect. I acknowledge that a million times, but in always trying to work on that, like there is definitely a benefit there. And a lot of, it's funny in doing this and in all of our lives, we all wear these different hats, right? We're dentists, we're parents, we're spouses, we are business owners. And so, like, when I'm thinking about, okay, this golf thing is happening, but like, I am very passionate about the other things I do in my life. Obviously, it's the main thing I do, and being a dentist and a coach. Like, I want to lead by example. I talk to people, I talk on the podcast and I talk to clients all the time about responding without emotion, responding neutrally, not getting too high or too low with anything. Right. And so someone asks a question that you don't know the answer to, or you might feel like emotionally charged to that question. I want to try to lead by example and say, okay, no, I'm going to process and then respond in a way, again, that's not reactionary or, like you said, Derek, like kind of a deer in the headlights. Sure, I feel like a deer in the headlights sometimes with that kind of stuff, but it's like I feel like I've trained and worked hard to not show that necessarily. So a lot of that was just trying to lead by example for the world. Which again, I'm very happy that that was a success. I don't necessarily care what others think, but I know that I was my genuine self in all of the media and all of the publicity. And that means a lot because it would have really hurt me to try to put on this face for the week and not be true to myself and then kind of look back and be like, that's not really me. I know that I was able to be successful in being me.
Yeah. I think I love that thought process. I had a call with a dentist this week that was trying to kind of debate, here's my scenario. I feel like, I'm afraid of what my staff is going to think of me if I do this, but it feels like this is the right thing to do. And I was just like, you know what? Honestly, the most important thing is you feeling good about your actions. If you feel good about what you've done, there is a very high chance that your team, if they're the right team members, are going to get behind that. They're going to feel good about that. They're going to feel like they can back you up. So it's cool to hear you go through this experience. Everything's just practice. There's different ways, there's different scenarios, and the stakes are higher than others, or there's more people watching than others, but it's all practice at different levels.
And going through this, like I mentioned, my buddy telling him like, oh, nothing will ever bother me again. Like, it's so true. There's going to be other golf tournaments. Like, I'm not just done. And even in just playing casual golf with my buddies over the weekend, like nothing feels the same. And we talk about pushing out of comfort zones, right? That's essentially what I did in a very short period of time. And that's what a lot of people who are listening to this can do. We talk about this all the time. Like, pushing out of your comfort zone might be doing a procedure that you have the capabilities of doing, but you're nervous about doing for some reason. Pushing out of your comfort zone might be having an honest conversation with a team member or patient that is going to be uncomfortable, but is necessary. And again, a lot of that comes down to being yourself, knowing that you can feel at peace with whatever you're trying to do, and knowing deep down that you're doing the right thing, and then just being honest with yourself or with others. But it's true, man. It's just practice and pushing out of your comfort zone. I mean, there's really nothing bad that can come of that in your personal life, your career, your golf game, whatever it is. Like, there's really nothing bad that can happen if you're trying to do that regularly.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious, even in your practice, you said with telling your buddy, like, I'm never going to get upset at anybody for doing anything on the golf course. Like, has that translated in the chair time that you've had since being back in, as far as just like, oh man, that was like such a high amount of pressure. There's almost nothing in my life that can compare to that. So I guess I'm curious, do you feel that, and do you think that will stay, or that things will kind of normalize again at some point?
Yeah, I think I'm still trying to process that a little bit. I have been back really the 2 days after the Open ended. I was back in the office. And yes, it feels different. A lot of things feel different in my life. Having gone through the media circus, having had this magnifying lens on my life for a 2-3 week period or whatever it's been, things do feel different. And I do feel more prepared to tackle just about anything in life because of it. I will say, in part because of the experiences that I've been through, but then also in part due to my self image, and that this is kind of a chicken or the egg scenario. I'm going to use golf as an example. Like, I can think, oh, I'm a great golfer. I'm worthy of all the successes of everything that I accomplished. No failures will bother me. And I can say that, but until I do something to back it up, I'm kind of just delusionally optimistic, right? So it's like this chicken or the egg scenario in golf or in life where you have to have this delusional optimism or resilience in your life. And a lot of that can apply to your self image. Be like, I'm a good person. I'm a great dentist. I know I'm going to be a great business owner. And you have to say that while things might not be that great at the moment, or you're working on things, you know? So I feel like in going through all of this, not just this specific qualification for the US Open, but just recently in my life, I feel like I haven't tied my self worth to my successes in business or on the golf course or anything. And I've just felt very at peace with who I am as a person. And I feel like that in turn has brought me success in all these arenas.
Mm-hmm. Chicken and the egg.
Chicken or the egg, yeah. And I don't know if that's just becoming a father and gaining perspective, losing my father just with age. You know, I think there's lots of things and life experiences that play into that. But I just think back to like when I was a very young dentist or even beforehand, where I just felt like so many things bothered me or so many things felt stressful or threw me off, maybe because they were new experiences. And if I could go back and impart wisdom on that person, I'd be like, just, it doesn't have to be that way. And I don't know if that's possible for someone who is in those shoes to flip that switch. A lot of it is sticking to the process over time and understanding like we're getting out of our comfort zone. We're trying to change and improve as a person. And it just kind of happens over time. I feel like that will resonate with a lot of people who are either in that process right now or have gone through it. And they say, yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've wondered that, like, if I could go back in time, would I be open enough to hear my future self? Would I even trust? I'd be like, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm here. You're in the
Right.
future and you think you know everything, but you don't know what
Right.
it's like to be here.
Right.
Like, you forgot.
Right.
It's the experiences that we go through. We learn, they mold us. It's a day by day process
Mhm.
that just transforms over time.
As time goes on, it's difficult to pass on wisdom sometimes through coaching, but I enjoy it more and more over time as I go through experiences in my own life and in coaching. I remember perfect examples when I was working with Justin and he was coaching me very early on in my practice. And I had a hygienist like quit on the spot. And I can reflect honestly and say that I didn't do a whole lot wrong. There was lots of stuff I did wrong in my practice and still do, but I reflect back on that. And this was someone who we had a misunderstanding and not much of it was my fault in my opinion. And so I was obviously distraught. Like I was like, what do I do here? How do I cover the schedule tomorrow? Everything it was a huge deal. And Justin, who had a lot of wisdom and been through a lot at that point, basically said, I know what you're feeling and I totally understand, but you're going to look back on this one day and this is just going to be a blip on the radar of your life and your practice and your career. We're not talking about some massive, like true emergency, like my practice burned down or some crazy thing. We're talking about something that felt big to me, but he knew and was able to assure me, hey, you're going to get through this. And I think about that moment a lot. And now I have those moments with my clients where things feel big, things feel massive. And yes, to them in the micro sense, they're a big deal. But sometimes we have to just look at things and we need reassurance to know, okay, this is just going to be a blip on the radar of my existence, basically.
Yeah. I still think that's one of the biggest benefits of coaching is when you're in the trenches day in, day out. It's very challenging to get a bird's eye view, to get a zoomed out view of what's going on. I think back to boxing where it's like you're in the ring, you're getting hit. You don't have time to analyze what exactly is going on between you two. So you go sit down in between the rings, and that's when the coach is like, look, here's what's happening. Here's what you need to do. Here's where you need to redirect. And that feels so similar to me in coaching in a business where you can talk through things with someone that's had personal experience, has worked with a lot of different people, can kind of have more of a subjective point of view to just say like, look, here's what it looks like. it might make a lot of sense to go this way. What do you think about that? And just being able to talk through it with someone that you can trust helps you get centered more, make better decisions, react better, make less mistakes over time. That really changes the trajectory of your growth.
Hmm. Yeah, keep going back to golf, but after the U.S. Open, a pressure cooker scenario, my swing felt off, and I had a couple of my buddies who I work with. I call them buddies. They actually do work with me on swing and short game and then fitness. So I brought them all out, and I'm in the pressure cooker. Like I'm in that environment. I kind of know what I'm feeling and what's going on, but they're able to make observations, and we have a ton of video from TV and their recordings, all this data now, and I'm in the process there, and I can't really figure out what's going on. And so
Yeah.
right afterward, we have a recap. Like, okay, guys, I do not need yes men. I actually texted them all this. We had a group going for the week. I said, we're just kind of summarizing what happened, everything for the week. And I said, guys, like, love you all. Thank you for the help. Like, this is just going to be an awesome stepping stone for whatever's next in golf and in life. But like, I just want to make sure that you guys don't just pat me on the back. Like, let's critically analyze what happened from your perspective. And I want you all to give me good feedback. And I go to my buddy shortly after, and we're working on my swing. And I'm kind of not freaking out, but I'm like, this feels bad and this doesn't feel right. And he's like, dude, here's what you were doing. It's the same stuff we've been working on, but you got under pressure and you kind of got off the rails. So we're going to work on this, this, this. And an hour later, I leave and I feel so much better because I have this framework in my mind to know, okay, yes, I thought I needed to work on that, but you just confirmed it. You're an expert. Thank you. And then I'm not like trying 100 different things now. It's like back on the rails. So like golf, life, coaching, dental practice, like there's so much value in it. I know we're biased, obviously. That's what we do. We love doing this and that's what we do for a living. You and I and Steve, but it's so true. I mean, there's just so much value in having an unbiased bird's eye view of things in any area of your life that you're trying to improve, in my mind.
Yeah, I love that. That's very appropriate. That's much
It's so
better than the
true.
boxing analogy for this episode.
No, I've tried really hard not to stretch this, especially in all the media. Like the last thing I want is for people to think I'm doing media to try to gain popularity for my practice or for TLP. And it's already happened. Like, more patients, more clients because they see that something's going right for me, which feels awesome. But like that's never the goal. I want to inspire, but I want to practice what I preach in a way. I want for clients, if they want to have a lifestyle practice, if they want to be able to accomplish their goals and their dreams outside of their offices, I feel like I should try to back that up. And
Totally.
it doesn't mean qualifying for a national championship and whatever you're trying to do. It doesn't have to always be tied to success. Like I don't want people to think, oh, Matt's better because he had this big successful event. It's like, no, maybe somebody wants to practice less and garden more. You don't have to become the best gardener in the world. If that's what you want to do and it's something that is it's not nefarious or bad like we've talked about, then you should be able to do it as long as you're still taking care of your team and your patients and your business.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could go on all day about that, but I'm pumped about being able to spread that message to the world a little bit.
Yeah, I love it. I wanted to kind of wrap up with a question, just like, where do you go here as far as golf and stuff like that? But before that, I remember a question that I wanted to ask, and it was sponsors. You had sponsors, and I didn't recognize this until I posted in one of the dental networking groups. We're like, is he sponsored by Meisinger, the
Yeah.
brewer company? And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure that wouldn't happen. Like, how could he put together that
Yeah.
so quickly? And then it was confirmed. So I want to hear like what happened as far as getting sponsors. How did that all work out?
Yeah. So they've been awesome. Obviously, we put out a lot of great content into the world, but I've never made a push in dentistry to like be out there just being flashy with what we're doing, I think. Like I've never really wanted to do that, but it's been cool to see so many voices and thought leaders in dentistry being able to connect with those people just instantaneously this week. So yeah, Meisinger reached out and there are tons of people reaching out, including Best Day Brewing, which is on my chest. And then I chose to put College Golf Fellowship, their logo on my other chest. It's an organization that I'm passionate about. But yeah, I mean, you're an amateur golfer, so you got to take the time and the money and everything to get to this tournament. You're not getting paid. So they were awesome to be able to help out for the week. But yeah, it came together really fast along with all the media stuff. I mean, you just got to get this all together really quickly. So I have a friend who actually reached out to me literally the morning after the qualifier. He runs a PR firm and he's like, hey man, you're going to need my help. Trust me. So he helped me kind of get this all together. Yeah, everyone was super cool. I wasn't just going to put like Billy Bob's CPA firm on my chest and just try to make a quick buck. But it worked out well, for all the airtime that I had. Yeah, it's crazy just to enter again, walking onto the golf course for that qualifier and then walking off just to immediately be in that whirlwind was just crazy.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I'm kind of out of the whirlwind now a few weeks later. It's just like I kind of like shake my head and wonder what the heck just happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk about what's next. Like after this, like still processing, still kind of thinking, but does this experience change anything for you as far as like, okay, maybe I do want to double down and commit even more? Or is
Mhm.
it like, oh, it was a one off, like I still just want to enjoy golf and do whatever? Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so that's a question I got a lot in a lot of different ways. Is like, are you a professional now? Like, are you quitting dentistry? What's going on? And I will always be an amateur golfer. That ship sailed a long time ago. For me, like I mentioned in my USGA press conference, my pursuit of amateur golf outside of obviously my career aspirations is honestly a challenge to myself. And I think this is how any pursuit that you have should be. It's a challenge to yourself to see what's possible. Sure, I have some goals in mind, but it's really just a pursuit to see what's possible. So when you say double down, it's not really a double down as far as time goes. It's not like, oh, let's cut back on work or let's restrict how many clients I'm helping with TLP to play more golf. It's more of like, okay, I just played in the US Open. That opens a lot of doors to play in better tournaments, to play against better competition, tournaments that you might not even qualify for or get invited to, amateur tournaments. And a lot of those are kind of spaced out throughout the year. So it's not like an increase in time commitment necessarily. It's just, okay, the bar's been raised in a way. The floor has been raised and our ceiling has been raised, but like the bar of competition in that way has kind of been raised. And then when you get a lot of these high level amateur tournaments, the US Amateur, the Western Amateur, you get automatic qualifications for doing what I did. So it's a pretty cool byproduct of things. I honestly love at this point in my life learning and improving my performance and optimizing performance, whether that's golf, whether that's my practice, whether that's other dentist practices. Like, I just feel like I found my niche in life in that it's optimizing performance. How do we improve whatever it is we're trying to improve? So I love the synergies that I have with competition and also trying to be a better business owner, a better leader, a better dentist, and helping other people do that. Like I am so at peace with that right now and that balance that I have. It's just I'm pumped up about it, honestly. So again, we'll just kind of see where things go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a great headspace to be in. In some ways, if you could live in that headspace forever, there would be no other need for any big accomplishment. It's the
Mhm.
joy of the journey. It's growing for the sake of growth. And I feel like that's something that I've learned in myself and really identified even more strongly since selling my practice.
Yeah.
And I feel like for me, it's the biggest motivation in life in general. Like if I was able to just kind of put one broad thing as far as what motivates me in life, it's continuous growth.
It has to be because I could have left the US Open and said, I played poorly, I failed, and I'm upset about it. In life and in business and in golf, you either win or you learn. If your happiness or your identity is tied to what you do or the successes or failures of whatever you're doing, you're going to be miserable. You're going to ride a roller coaster that you're never going to be able to get off. I'd say in qualifying for the US Open, I learned something very quickly. I'm still me. When I woke up on Tuesday morning, I'm still me. When I showed up on the first tee of the US Open, nothing drastically changed. I'm still me. And I say that meaning my life wasn't like it was awesome the last 2 weeks. And I think there's positive effects of what happened, but it's not like anything drastically changed in my life. People experience this a lot where we might have talked about this even with our dental practices. Like you have this massive success or you're always striving for that next thing. And you think, okay, once I do that, then I'll be so happy. Once my practice does 7 figures, that'll be when I'm happy. Once I qualify for a big tournament and get my big break, then I'll be set. And an ounce of me, like when I got there, was like, well, wait a second, like, is this is it? Like nothing's really different. So it's kind of screws with your head a little bit. To bring it back to what you were saying, again, if your identity is tied in like success or what you do, you're going to be miserable. For peak performance and improvement, you almost have to throw that to the side and say, I'm doing this for just the sake of improving. I'm walking into my office this morning and trying to do the best crown prep I can just because, I'm going to go hit balls this evening after my daughter goes to bed, not because I want to win the US Open next year or because I want to win this certain golf tournament. And if I don't, I'll be mad. No, I'm going to go do it for the sake of improvement. Can I get 1% better today? That's what it's all about as far as peak performance goes. And then your head can hit the pillow at night. I can finish almost dead last in the US Open and not be upset about it because it's like my identity wasn't tied to finishing in a certain place or doing a certain thing. And that's easier said than done in some scenarios. Like in my case, I'm an amateur. What I do in that tournament really doesn't matter. There's guys out there who are fighting for their livelihoods, right? They missed the cut in the US Open and they might still be in the red as far as their costs go for the week, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So it's easy for me to say that to somebody whose practice is maybe struggling a little bit. But mentally, you do have to find a way to disconnect from identifying with the results of what you're doing. You have to care about it. You have to care about your practice providing you a living. You have to care about, if you're a professional golfer, making money. But you have to find a way to disconnect from the results and stick to your process. It's so much easier said than done, but it's just what you have to do.
Yeah. It's a bit counterintuitive, but I couldn't agree more.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's been a pleasure. It's been really cool to hear everything. So, Matt, before we wrap up, any last things you want to share?
Thank you. Thank you to everybody. I got so many messages from all of you. I really appreciate that. I guess the final thing I want to share is, again, you can do more in your life than you probably even think. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I hope that this story resonates with you all to know that you can accomplish a lot of things. Sure, there are things in your life, as we all have in our lives, that are non-negotiable obstacles, I guess you could say, to what you might be trying to do. We've got families to take care of. I'm not telling you to abandon your family and your practice and go try to qualify for US Open or do whatever. Like, there are some things that are non-negotiable, but outside of that, you can do awesome things. Amidst all of the, my email inbox and just everything blowing up over the last couple weeks, I have made sure I want to stay true to who I am. I want to stay true to what we preach at TLP. So reach out if you need help with your practice or if you just want to chat through anything. Please shoot me an email, matt@thelifestylepractice.com. I am a much better player of golf than I am a teacher, so I don't know if I can give you the best swing tips, but by all means, stay in touch. We're going to continue to do what we've been doing here at TLP, and I hope you'll be along for the journey. So, Derek, thanks for being a great interviewer today. I appreciate your help with that. I'm glad we could fit this in amongst my big media tour here.
Yeah, happy to help out. And it's been fun on my end because, they're all questions that I genuinely have wanted to ask. So It's kind of nice because we could have gone on the phone and I could have asked you, but we just hit record at the same time.
And I'm joking, by the way. The media tour is done. We're back to real life. Yeah. But no, thank you, brother. I appreciate everything.
Well, thanks everybody for listening. It was a pleasure having everybody along for the ride. Really happy for Matt and the way that he represented TLP and dentistry, and excited to see where things go. Again, feel free to reach out to any of us, Derek, Matt, or Steve at thelifestylepractice.com, and look forward to hearing from you guys. Take care.
Take care, everybody.